Okay, now we're going to install Fedora 17 onto our USB stick. At the moment I have a Fedora 17 boot CD, which is a 64-bit. What I'm going to do now is pop that into my CD disk drive and now restart my computer. Okay, what we need to do is, when it restarts, you need to push either F11 or F12. This is so we can go into the bootloader of your computer system. So usually it's down to your bottom left hand side down here. As soon as it restarts, you'll see a selection, either F11 or F12. I'll click F12 and it brings me to this boot menu. Okay, each computer is different, so my boot menu is just a selection of which one I'd like to boot with first. So at the moment it's under USB, but I want to change that to my DVD and CD drive because I'd like to boot my system from a live CD, which is obviously Fedora 17. So I'll select that now. Each computer is different. Some computers some computers require you to go through the BIOS menu, which is fine. You go through to the BIOS menu and change the boot sequence that way instead. So what I have here is a 16 gigabyte USB stick, but 8 is enough. It's the same theory, just different size stick, and we'll allocate the USB stick in a different way. What we'll do, we'll partition it or segregate the drive in a different way. So I'll wait for Fedora to finish loading up. Okay, so once the boot CD continues, you'll get to this main screen here, the fireworks. So this is the main sort of desktop, essentially, of Fedora. In a little bit, the question will be asked if you want to just try Fedora or install it, which we'll go through anyway. And obviously we want to install it, but we want to install it onto our USB stick. Okay, so this is the question it's going to ask you. So, do you want to try it? Normally, people who want to try Fedora just run it off the boot disk and they can go around to the options and have a feel for it. But today we're going to install. What you'll find is that this video is not in real-time installation, so your installation will take a lot longer than the length of this video does. Naturally, you don't want to sit here watching a blank screen, so I've cropped out the bits that you don't need to see. I've left in only the important bits. Okay, so if you're sat there waiting, it's not because your computer's broken, it's because it's taking a while to install. Okay, so now we're going to install it Fedora, and you'll be asked what language you want to use. Naturally, United Kingdom. Then on the right hand side, just click next. Okay, now what sort of storage device do we want to install it on? So we obviously want to install it onto the basic storage devices, which is the top one out of the two. And then again, select next. We'll leave that to examine and wait for the next step. Okay, what we'll do here is localhost. I'll put in my name and then select next. Select the time. So just make sure it's London. Down here. Just either select it on the map or look through or scroll through the cities here and then select next. Put your password in. Obviously put any password you want. I'll just put a simple one in for now and I can change that later. And then select next. Normally it gives you this error. If you're happy, just use anyway and you can change it later. Okay, now this is important, so make sure that your USB stick is in the machine at this point, because when we select one of these installation methods, it will want to find it. So what we're going to do is use all free space, which is the top one. Okay, and then also select the bottom. It says review and modify. So that is what we'll do, and then proceed to the next step. Okay, what we have here is a selection of our drives. We have our Toshiba. My laptop is a Toshiba with just under 500 gigabytes of RAM, memory, and my flash drive, which is obviously a scan disk, and that also has 15.2 gigabytes of memory. So what we'll do is we need to move that onto the opposite side here. So we select it, use the arrow, and here it is, move to the opposite side. Make sure that you do choose your USB stick, because this is where we're going to install and write over all the information that is on this disk. So be careful. Make sure you backed up all your information on your USB before you do this, because it will completely erase any information on it. So once you're happy, we're installing everything onto your USB, select next, and then it just examines. Okay, and now it's happy with that, you'll be presented with this step now. Where we are now is still installing Fedora, and now it's looked at what drives you have. So this is, let's have a look what we got here. So this is your main hard drive, and you can see there's already some smaller partitions on here. And then we'll have a look at this one, and you can see that based on the memory size on here, you can see that this is my USB stick, because this has got 500, well, just under 500 gigabytes on it, so that's my hard drive, so I don't want to start messing around with that. And then this is my hard drive, and this is my USB stick. Okay, so when you do select it, you can actually see a preview of how it's broken up on top here. So here at the moment it's got just over 700 megabytes for root and over 700 megabytes for swap. So it's divided it in two. We don't actually want that. What we'll do is we'll just quickly modify this. So I'll double click swap, because we want to reduce that down. Now with about 15 or a 16 gigabyte memory stick, you're meant to have 2 gigabytes of RAM. Well, it's actually based on your computer's RAM, but I want as much memory as much physical memory as I can, so I only give myself 1 gigabyte. There you go, and that's for swap memory. And then push OK. Okay, then we go back, and then the remainder of your root, which is the top one, we'll double click that because we want to change that. You'll notice that the file format is ext4, it's for root, and that we'll use the remaining, as it says there. I have 13728. Okay, once that's been selected and you're happy, push OK. And then you'll notice that the changes I've made have been reflected here. And also when I've selected my USB stick, you'll actually see I have a lot more space here for all my files to install. Now if you have an 8 gigabyte memory stick or just under, I usually allocate about 750 megabytes of swap. That's just my personal preference, because I know that I'd want maximum as much root space as possible. My root space is where obviously I'm going to install all my softwares if I do choose to. So you'll go through the same steps but allocate just slightly less for each partition. It's the same scaling really, just apply it to an 8GB memory stick. Now I'm happy with that. I'll go to the bottom and I will click next. Now it will just check with you, it will just confirm that if you're happy you can write changes and it will install onto the memory stick. Again, we're not actually installing onto the hard drive. Okay, this can happen up. Okay, good point to bring up. Sometimes a bugging issue can occur. So what you have to do is just exit the installer and it will reboot from the CD and you go through the exact same steps all over again, which I will do now, just in very brief cropping order. Okay, now I've gone through all the same steps, exactly as before. So now you should now see it, Fedora 17 now installing onto my flash drive. This step alone takes about 20 minutes. So when I get back to the end, I will then continue on. Okay, after the installation's finished, you'll be welcome to say that the Fedora is successfully installed and that you can reboot now. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to reboot and then the system will reboot off the USB drive. Or will it? Let me just check. Yep, okay, I've pushed F12 just to check what I'm booting from and it's got my USB stick. I'll push enter. And this is what normally happens. You have a selection of Windows and Fedora. So what you need to do is select Fedora 17, obviously it depends what operating system you want to use, and then continue to the normal Fedora booting system. And then you're confronted with the Fedora sign that welcomes you. Next you'll need to do is then click forward and continue with the installation. If you're happy with the licensing, click forward and then complete this section here. So obviously your name. Sets up a username for you and put any password you want. I'll just put this in now and I can change it later. And then I will click forward when I'm happy. Yep, click forward. And that will confirm the time and the date, which I'm not really too bothered about. So forward again. And if you're happy with the hardware profile, which I always am, click finish. I don't bother sending. And that's it. You've completely installed onto your USB stick now. You'll know that by your username will come up, so obviously my name, and put my password in. Okay. Also, you'll find that on the top right, you'll see your name come up around here. Okay, so that's the installation of Fedora 17. Hope you enjoy it.